Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Dane from NYYU. We'd like to welcome you to the Yankees Farm Report. Carlos, how you doing today?
I'm well, Dane. How are you?
Good. So now that the minor league season's over, we wanted to get into talking about our first team of prospects, who we would call our all-star team at every position. Kind of start in the infield, and we'll work our way out to the pitching and the bullpen. So, who did you have at first base?
For me at first base, I would have put Ben Rice.
That would be the same for me. Second base,
Jared Turner.
same again. Shortstop,
I went back and forth at shortstop, between Sweeney, um, Trey Sweeney and Roderick Arias, and I settled on Arias, I guess.
yeah, I had the same dilemma, and I am a lot higher on Arias's ceiling than I am on Sweeney, so I went with
hmm
Arias as well. Third base,
I went with Tyler Hardman.
I'm just not a Hardman fan. I thought that Oswald Peraza was our best third baseman this year. He didn't play there a lot, but he played there
hmm
enough that I think that you could put him there and be pretty excited about it.
I mean, I could definitely see him. Well, my hope is that he does get plenty of playing time at third base next season. Playing for in the Bronx. So yeah, I could definitely see that. But I went with Hardman because he had a monster year. The power numbers were really good for him. And I know he switches back and forth between third and first base. But I gave him the nod at third.
That's fair. Now, in the outfield, we had a number of good outfielders, but it's a little different to find the
Mhm.
guys. So, who did you have as your outfielders?
For my three outfielders, I went with Jason, obviously, Spencer Jones, and with Florial.
Same for me. This isn't much of a difference. DH,
At DH, I put Everson Pereira.
I have Austin Wells. Who's your catcher?
My catcher was Augustine Ramirez.
Same. Starting pitcher,
My rotation is Drew Thorpe, Chase Hampton, Richard Fitz, Will Warren, and Brock Selvage.
not much point
One of
arguing with that.
the
Outfield or bullpen.
in the bullpen, I have Danny Watson, Luis Velasquez, Jack Neely, Bailey Dees, and Cole Ayers.
I have Jack Neely, Danny Watson, Luis Velasquez, Edgar Barclay, and Gomes.
Uh, good rotation and bullpen you got going on there.
Yeah, it is. I think that there's a lot to be excited about that team
hmm
about. You have left-handed hitters, you have right-handed hitters. It's just a good mix, and the pitching is so strong.
hmm we've spoken about this all year. The pitching is very exciting. It's the best the Yankees have had as far as I could remember. So as I said, I think I said in the last episode, I expect the Yankees to get at least two starting pitchers from this crop of pitching prospects, and definitely a couple of bullpen arms.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't even get to Clayton Beater, who obviously should be in play for that fifth spot next year or breaking
Mhm.
out in the bullpen. We didn't even talk about Randy Vasquez or Jhony Brito, who could all have futures in the bullpen as well.
Absolutely. And I don't know if anyone noticed, but Clayton Beater did finish pretty strong. I think he had the final three games was really good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Brito's another guy, bullpen wise, who could probably take over that Michael King role moving forward. He um, pitched well coming out of the bullpen. I want to say since mid August or
He
early
did.
August. And Randy Vasquez is another one. I looked up his numbers. They're pretty good. I think he's pitching to a 2.91 ERA on the season, but he's mostly been coming out of the bullpen as of late. But I looked at his first three starts. I think in his first three starts he did about 15 innings and he only gave up two runs.
Yeah.
So I started to wonder, like, wait, I mean, it's not like he got bombed. Why all of a sudden they just make him a middle innings reliever when he was doing pretty well as a starting pitcher?
I think because the bullpen was so depleted with injuries. I mean, you
Mhm.
lost everybody, and they had more starting pitching than they did relievers, I think.
Look, so here it is. He pitched 15 in the third innings, gave up just 2 runs, from what I remember seeing. But yeah, maybe that might be it. It's just the bullpen was just depleted, the back and forth, between a lot of guys being shuttled. We've seen that in the past.
Yeah.
Next season though, um, where would you like to see Randy start, in the bullpen or coming out of the bullpen, or getting a legitimate shot at the rotation?
I would like to see him in the fifth starter competition to start. And if he does not win that job out of spring training, go to the bullpen.
So in your perfect world, what does your starting rotation look like?
Next year,
Hmm.
Cole, Rodon, Yamamoto, Michael King, and whoever wins the fifth starter spot between Thorpe, Warren, Beater, Vasquez,
A
Gomes,
lot of
maybe.
there's a lot of arms up for that fifth spot. Um, so what are you doing with Nestor?
Great.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before. I thought that they should have tried to make a move on him last offseason, where his stock was at an all-time high. Um, and it wasn't because I thought I've seen this on Twitter, some people saying that he just got lucky and things of that nature. He pitched really well last season,
Yeah,
but
he
I
did.
don't know, I just felt like it almost feels like, for me at least, it almost felt like the clock was going to strike 12 on him at any moment. It was a hot potato and you didn't want to get stuck holding it, so that's why I thought that they should have moved him. And again, it's not that it was lucky or anything like that. It's just that I didn't know if the I don't even know what to call it, but kind of like that. I want to say like a razzle dazzle he had going on the mound,
Yeah.
like it was like hitters were starting to catch up to it.
They
I
were
remember
sitting
I
on
put.
a they were sitting on his cutter. They were waiting for that pitch, at least
Mhm.
right-handed hitters, and they were just crushing it.
Yeah, I remember he went through a really bad stretch, and I was like, I guess the magic is gone. Um, so for me, like I said, it was a little bit of, I thought that the the clock struck 12 on him. That's it. I don't know how much longer he's gonna be able to keep this going. So why not try to make a move, and try to see if you can get something in return.
Yeah, I agree. They almost had him traded last year for Taylor Ward, the
Mm.
second baseman from Tampa, or what's his
No,
name?
Taylor Ward is from California, is from the Angels.
Oh, okay. No, it's the kid from Tampa that was playing shortstop for a while when Franco was hurt.
Is that low? Is that low?
No, um, he was horrible 2 years ago and just had a huge breakout season last
No,
year.
I don't remember who that was. Was that the kid
Oh,
who was
okay.
talking a lot of trash?
Yeah,
This is Donnie Walls, I think.
that might be it.
Mm.
So, what do you do with Clark Schmidt?
Um, uh, he's a homegrown talent, so I'm gonna say, hey, if you're not gonna insert him into the rotation, then let's see if he works out in the bullpen. And if it doesn't, then you know, I know a lot of people are saying trade him, and for the life of me, I don't know why they just want to outright trade him like that. He has pitched very well this season. Um, Maybe you can give me some insight into why people are so adamant of trading Clark Schmidt right now.
Well, I think you have to look at the value, what his value is on the trade websites. It's incredibly high. It's in the 30s or 40s. So he can bring a major piece back according to that.
Mhm.
I think Michael King has clearly surpassed him as a starter, at least in my book. Um, and I just have never believed in Schmidt as a starting pitcher. I think that he will eventually get exposed. He doesn't go deep enough into games. And I think you have to capitalize on the value. You're going to
I mean,
have to be
from
creative
what
on
I
the.
yeah, but from what I've seen when he has started, he has pitched well. Typically 5 innings. Granted, you want to go a little bit deeper than that, but he can give you a good solid 5 innings. I mean, there's plenty of work for guys like that.
Right. But in a off season where you're going to see so much done trade wise, I guess it depends on if they get Yamamoto. If they get Yamamoto, I'm trading Schmidt and
Hmm.
giving the 4th spot to King and one of the kids. If they don't get Yamamoto, then I think you have to keep Schmidt.
I think that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, because like for the life of me, I'm like, he's a homegrown guy. You finally get him to where you kind of wanted him to be, and now you want to move on from him. Um, Especially when you don't have, um, I would say like a reliable replacement right now. Yes, I personally want to see Thorpe in the starting rotation next season, come hell or high water. Um, but again, but you don't know how much of a learning curve he's going to need.
That's fair.
And
So
with the Yankee starting rotation, with that rotation, well, hopefully it doesn't happen next season, but there's always injuries.
there are, but you still have your Vasquez's, your Britos,
Right.
your Warrens, your Beater that could come
Hmm.
in and be your 6th, 7th starting pitching option. So you have options there.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I definitely can see that the options are there. I didn't see many options this season that were on the 40 man. Um, I'm just thinking about the guys who came up over the last month, like the Nick Ramirez's and so on and so forth.
Oh
Um,
goodness.
who else is it? Jared Weaver and uh, totally not
Josh
prepared.
Mesowitz or whatever. It
Yeah,
was
like that's something that I don't want to see in next season. There's a lot of guys that are pretty much on the cusp of being ready. I would want them to take full advantage of that. Yeah, I mean, for this season or going into next season, there's a lot of other options. I know that they're not all in the 40 man, but there's plenty of 40 man space that's should be cleared out this off season. I don't want to say
absolutely.
is, but there is a lot that should be cleared out. So there should be plenty of opportunities for, I think Beater's gonna have to be added. I believe he is a rule 5.
He is.
Um he's a rule 5. Then you're gonna have other guys. I think Yoendries might still have one more season, I want to say.
They're supposed to get
I
another
think
option because he spent so much time on the 60-day IL,
yes.
kind of like with Debbie
Yes, that's what I read.
Garcia last year.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a lot better options this season, as far as other guys that you can call up. If one of your starting pitchers gets injured. So my hope is that we don't see that the shuttle with the options that they had this season. There should be a lot better options this season going in 2024.
Yeah. And you can't forget about Luis Hill. He's back. He's
Hmm.
looked good in his rehabs. It's going to depend on the changeup and the cutter that he added if he's a starting pitcher or a reliever, but he could play up in either role really well. So that's another option for next year.
Do you think they bring him up slowly, like continue build him up for 1 or 2 innings, or do you think he'll be ready to step into a rotation slot if needed?
I think he'll be ready to step into a rotation spot with a full winter of work.
Mm.
That's my thinking at least. And
I mean,
even if
I'm
it,
amped to see him. I'm amped to see, I mean, he was one of the more exciting guys up until that injury. And I know
yeah,
he had a bit of a rough the fastball was amazing. I know he had a bit of a rough start at Scranton, but he did show flashes. And
yeah,
we've
he
seen what he can
did.
do at the major league level.
Yeah. And I just think that what he lacked this year was time to get ready. I mean, he's recovering from a pretty traumatic injury. He's coming back. I think the arm will be healthy and 100% in spring. And I think we'll be able to see what he can do. So, is there anything else you want to touch on with the All Stars or?
No, I think those are the only guys that I wanted to mention. We could move on, I guess, to the article you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you sent me an article this week, and it was a Reddit article, and we'll include it in the description. But it's an article of Oswald Cabrera talking about himself coming up last year and how well he hit and how well he did everything else. And then starting this year, when he started to struggle, they started changing things with him. And it took him going back to AAA, being optioned down and seeing that coach, the hitting coach there, to say, go back to your old mechanics. And what we're seeing is, in the last few weeks, is him going back to his old mechanics and old swing. So why are they changing everything that got them to the major league level?
This is something that you and I have spoken on before, where I don't understand for the life of me why it isn't when a player is knocking on the door to get to the Bronx or he's already there. Now you have coaches or advisors that are telling these kids, let's do a 180, let's completely change your swing and things of that nature. I know Aaron Judge has spoken on this. Now you have Cabrera. Before that, we knew Oswald Peraza, that they tinkered with his swing as well. I think they got rid of his leg kick, and Sean Casey brought it back, and he's hit a lot better since then. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me because, like, we had a conversation about this the other day. The issue, I think, is at AAA, where it should be the final step before they say, okay, this is who you are. This is the player we want you to be. And instead of them saying, well, you know what, let's maybe work on this a little bit more, or let's see if you can play first base. They don't do that. And I think it's because, I've mentioned this before. They use the Scranton team as a place to hoard reclamation projects. Instead of a place where you put the finishing, instead of the place where you put the finishing touches on a kid that's coming up from Somerset. It's fine if you have a couple pitchers that you can call it up in a pinch if someone is injured. And these are reclamation projects, or an outfielder, a bat if needed. But that should not be a place that more than half the rosters of quadruple A players and reclamation projects. I hate that they do that, because all that does is it creates a logjam for the rest of the system downward, because there's other guys that should be moved forward, like Trey Sweeney should have been there, but he wasn't. It took Austin Wells forever to get up there, and it's a little frustrating for me.
It's really frustrating for me because they don't use AAA the way that everybody else does. Like you said, it's a holding place for guys just in case. It's not a place where they go, if they're going to have somebody work on something new, it should be in AAA when the games don't count. I mean, what difference does it make if you move Austin Wells to first base and get him a couple looks in AAA and he drops a ball or something like that? It's not a big deal. But if he does it at the major league level, that's a problem. You got to start using.
That's where you want. Properly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's where you want to use, or that's where you want Austin Wells to start learning first base, not already in the major leagues. It does, like I said, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and people wonder why we see our young hitters come up and regress. And it's pretty obvious when you do a little digging into it, why they do. It's because the coaches at the major league level are having them change the things that they were successful at that got them to the major leagues. We've seen regression with Cabrera, even Torres when they moved in positions, Peraza. The list goes on and on and on about guys that we have seen regress at the major league level when they came up. And
one thing I did want to mention is that this regression for me is based upon this crop of players. I'm not talking about the Clint Frazier's, the Miguel Andújar's, the Gary Sanchez. I think for them it was a little bit different. I think for them it was mostly injuries, especially with Andújar and Frazier, and I believe even Greg Bird. That was injuries which derailed their careers. With Gary, we've already spoken before. To me, I think it was just a constant pounding of, you can't do this well, you can't do that well, you can't do this, you can't do that, and changing coaches on him year after year. So that to me is a little bit different. So I wanted to just clarify that position.
Yeah, I understand that, and it makes sense, but it's still a problem that we're still seeing it with this current group that they did not learn last time when they had trouble with the group you just mentioned, that they're still trying to do the same things. you would hope that they would be smarter and learn that teaching kids to play new positions or change their batting at the major league level isn't the way to develop kids.
Yeah, I definitely agree with it. For me, I was definitely surprised when they called up Oswald last season and have him in right field. Granted, he played really well, but I mean, you don't want to see that kind of learning on the fly, especially when he's been a shortstop, second baseman, pretty much his whole career. Now all of a sudden you have him playing right field. It's a little bit different, especially when you're doing it at the major league level where the lights are the brightest.
Well, don't forget they had him in left field and first base last year too. All positions he'd never played in the minors. Why? It's frustrating. And then you see somebody like Cabrera who came up and looked like a really, really good player last year. And this year he comes up, has a great spring training, and then they try changing things, and he's not even a major league caliber player for the first half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just frustrating to see that when we know what we can get out of these kids, but we see them struggle at the major league level. I just hope it does not continue next year and they start to use AAA properly.
Agreed. Definitely agree.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about how the kids at the major league level have looked over the last couple of weeks. And I think you got to start with Estevan Florial up there.
Mm-hmm.
You and I
I mean,
have
he looked really well. I mean, he looked really good at times. Yeah.
you and I have been calling just for him to get an opportunity, and he's starting to make the most of that. You've seen the speed, you've seen the defense, you've seen the arm in the outfield, but it's the approach to the plate that has impressed me. He's working counts. He's not striking out at a 30% clip like he was in AAA. I mean, his strikeout rate's down to about 23.8%, I think I saw yesterday.
Well, looking at Florial's last 10 games, he's got 4 extra base hits, 6 RBIs. His walk rate is at 12.2%, and his King at a 17% rate.
See, that's a player that you can build on that start and get him at least thinking about next year. For me, for what I've seen from Florial, I want him as an outfielder until Jason gets back.
Yeah, I think I would be okay with that. And I know I've seen some people asking for Kiermaier. I don't want to go down that road. It's just Bader 2.0. This is another guy's always injured. Granted, he plays very good defense, but I mean, what good is that if the guy's on IL?
Why do you pay him $10 million a year when you can pay Florial 900? I mean, the defense isn't that dissimilar. The arm is probably really similar. The speed's really similar. I mean, is that really how we're going to spend money instead of going and getting a...
I don't agree with it. To me, doing that is just more of the same. It's the same because then he's getting injured, and then the same people who are calling for for signing him will be complaining about him being on IL and why didn't you go out and get this guy, or why didn't you go out and get that guy? For me, I'd rather see a fourth outfielder position go to like a Florial,
who can play all three outfield positions and is cheap
and stays on the field.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, in the last 3 or 4 years, he hasn't been an injury risk either.
No.
And then last night, it was great to see Everson Pereira back in the lineup. He has struggled horribly until this point, but he was dealing with a hamstring thing. And last night was probably the first game that we saw him really healthy. He had 2 really good hits. Looked good on the bases. He played well. What is your expectation for him next year?
Well, it's gonna be difficult because is he a guy that can be a fourth outfielder? He's one of those guys that he needs at bats because his numbers come in stacks, right? They come in bunches.
Yes.
But so, even though he'll look bad, let's say in a 5-6 game stretch, but if you open that out to 10, 12, 13, 14 games, all of a sudden the numbers look a lot better. Now, if you're only playing him, 1-2 times a week, how's that going to work for him? That's my concern with him.
And that would be mine as well. I think that I think you got to choose between Florial and Cabrera, who you're going to keep, and the other one
Probably, yeah.
becomes a trade chip. And I prefer Florial because he's left-handed and plays all three outfield spots very, very well.
He's also younger. Probably a lot more value with him as well.
Yeah. So the other guy that has seen a big change in the last few weeks is Peraza. He has really started to look like the player that you and I have been saying that he can be. Are you comfortable with going into next year as him as your third baseman?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was looking at his numbers. I thought he had an okay September, but when I looked at his numbers, they were even better than what I expected. He's hitting 274 on the month, 8 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. He's carrying at a 26% rate, but his walk rate is the only thing that concerns me a bit. It's a nick under 4.
Oh, that is a little concerning.
Yeah.
But you've seen the plate discipline with him. He is very, very advanced at working counts.
Mm-hmm.
And you see him go down 0-2 quite often, and he gets to 2-2, 3-2. I think it's just a little adjustment that he needs to make. The one thing I would really like to see him do more is try going to right field. He's very, very whole side dominant when he hits the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If he could go to right field more, I think that would open up the field for ground balls for him a little bit more and be able to use that speed.
I'm sure this offseason it'll be something that they work on with him, and also giving him more reps, getting him more comfortable. I'm sure he'll be able to do all of that. I went into the season with him as the de facto starting shortstop, and my numbers for him, I expected him to hit 260 with about 12 home runs and 25 stolen bases. So, I mean, what he's doing right now is kind of in line with that.
Yeah, it is. It's right in line with that. And that's what I expected from him. I think that he's probably a 270, 275 hitter once he gets fully adjusted. But I'm higher on Peraza than most, so I might be a little off on that. And then the last guy that we wanted to jump into was Austin Wells. And he has never been someone who adjusted quickly to levels. And we kind of saw him get off to a slow start, but in the last few games, he's really started to hit better. But the part that I've been the most impressed about is his game calling and his defense.
The fact that you haven't even noticed him catching.
Yep. Well, actually, I have noticed
that's a good thing.
catching.
I'm saying that's a good thing.
Yeah, but I have noticed him catching. And one thing that I've noticed is when he's behind the plate, not Higashioka, that the pitchers seem to pitch better.
I gotta look at that then.
Yeah, it's something to look at. I haven't looked at the exact numbers, but the games that he's been behind the plate, we have stayed in, and we actually have the best record over the last 25 games of any team in the American League. And that's playing these kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes back to why weren't they called up sooner?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons, especially with Jason, he wasn't hitting that well. It took him until July 1st for him to finally take off. For Wells, it had been an up and down season. He struggled a little bit at Scranton. Peraza is the same thing. He saw a couple injuries. He was up and down. Oswaldo was pretty much absent in the first half of the season. And we know how we went with Florial, right? They just, for some reason, just never called on the guy, even though he's been mashing for 2 seasons. I would say it's because the front office had this trying to sell this that we're still in the playoff hunt crap when we knew for a while now this is not a playoff team. This is not a playoff team. You're trying to sell me on this. Well, let's just get in, and it's a hope and a prayer because even if they got in, I thought they would have been a first round knockout.
Oh, they would have been 100%. Yeah. Even with for
that personally, I would rather not make the playoffs at all.
Yeah, me too. The only thing that really sucks about not making the playoffs this year is the draft pick goes back 10 spots because we spent $290 million on a horrific team.
I mean, and that just takes me back to why don't you sell some of these guys like Wandy, and a couple other guys out of that bullpen? You really had no need for them. But again, they were selling this. Oh, we're going for the playoffs. Um, it was just nonsense to me.
One last guy for next year. I want to get your take on what you would do with him. Torres.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because to me, it basically just comes down to money, right? Um, and I've been saying this for about a year now. Well, what kind of money do you think it's going to take to keep Torres? And for me, it's basically a Marcus Semien type deal, right? What is it, 70 for $175 million?
Yeah.
Do you want to go there? Do you want to go there? Who wants to pay Torres 175 million? And I get it that he's pretty much been the second best hitter on this team all season long. I understand that. He has mental lapses on the field here and there. Um, but is he a $175 million player? That's all. That's
No.
pretty much what it comes down to. If he's not, then you need to make room because you have a farm system full of middle infielders. You have
Yes.
Trey Sweeney coming up right behind him. You still have Peraza who could slide back over to second base. Coming up behind them, you have other guys like you have Roderick. There's a lot of middle
Cerna.
infielders on this team. You also have Cerner. There's a lot of middle infielders on this team. So I don't know. For me, I can't see paying him $175 million. That's not to me. That's not what $175 million player looks like.
No, not for me either. And if you don't trade him this offseason, you either lose him for a draft pick or trade him at the deadline. And I don't think either are better options than at least investigating the trade market this winter
Hmm.
and see what, and at least see what kind of offers you get for him. If you get something really good, take it and use that money elsewhere.
I mean, if you were going to trade him, I mean, what would you hope for in return?
A probably a MLB ready starting pitcher or close and another piece like an Edward Cabrera
Oh my God,
and
I would love that.
Marlins want him.
I mean, they've been after him for what, like 2 seasons now?
Mm-hmm. What would you want back for him?
Wow. I would definitely be happy with Cabrera. I would be very happy with a Cabrera return. And that
Yeah,
and the Marlins. Well, for the last time I had seen it, Marlins has several really good arms in their system.
they do. There's another guy that I think is going to be a heck of a reliever, and he hasn't been healthy, but that's Sixto Sanchez.
Mm.
Uh,
The last I saw of him, I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, he wasn't even 90 on the fastball
really?
though. He was sitting around 88, 89.
Ooh, maybe I'd have to rethink that one.
So, I don't know. I don't think he's anywhere near back to himself yet.
Yeah, it was just an idea. I had liked his stuff
But
before he had
Cabrera,
gotten
oof,
hurt.
hell yeah, I'll sign me up for Cabrera.
Yeah. So, was there anything else we wanted to get to this week, or is that pretty much it?
I think that's pretty much it. I did want to thank everybody once again. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for watching this content. We truly, truly appreciate it. And stick around. We're getting better every episode. We still have a lot of things coming up.
Yes, we do. And you can follow us. I'm at DMH0726 on Twitter and Instagram. You are at Yankees Farm on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So
Mhm.
come check us out, guys. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate all the support. And we'll talk to you soon. Later, guys.
Later, guys.